I'm going to be talking to you today about the Minnesota Marriage Amendment that is going to be on the 2012 ballot. What this states is only a union of one man, one woman, shall be valid or recognized in the state of Minnesota. Now, most people are thinking if this isn't passed, this would mean same-sex marriage will be legal in this state. However, that is greatly wrong. It is just saying, if passed, the only marriage in this state that would ever be recognized would be a marriage of one man, one woman, as equal and a true marriage. Some facts. If passed, this means Minnesota would not get to vote on same-sex marriage ever. We would never have the option to vote for the people who want it and for the people who don't. It would just be putting into law that it would forever be illegal in this state, and as of right now, it's not recognized in this state. But if this is passed, it will be literally illegal to ever be married in the state of Minnesota. So if you are a same-sex couple and you decide to go to a different state and get married and come back, it would not be recognized as a marriage in this state if you decide to come back and live here. Unless the president decided to or universalize same-sex marriage, it wouldn't be legal in this state. So I decided to go out and get some interviews from people, see if they've heard of this, if they have, what their views and opinions are on it, if they think it'll pass, and so on and so forth. Just some other opinions other than my own to see what people thought. And this is what I came up with. Do you know about or have you heard of the Minnesota Marriage Amendment that will be on the 2012 ballot?
Yes, I do know about it.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
What does this amendment say?
Basically that gay people cannot marry and will never be able to.
The amendment says only a marriage valid between a man and a woman shall be recognized in the state of Minnesota.
It says that marriage can only be between one man and one woman.
The amendment says that men will only be able to be married to women, and women will only be able to be married to men.
Do you agree with this amendment? Why or why not?
How about this? How about just the term marriage is actually a religious view of religious ceremony? And the fact that it should even be in our law system is wrong. Because you're not supposed to mix both of them. You know what I mean? Why don't we just switch the term and not use that term? Maybe that's the problem with it. Because we don't want gay marriage, we want equal rights.
Yeah.
The actual term marriage is not the important part of it. I think that if somebody's choosing that this law should be put into place because of religion, that's the problem with it.
Yeah.
That if the reason behind not wanting it is because of religion, I think that kind of, I just don't think that it should even be consideration for a law because it's completely different.
No, I do not. Simply for the fact that love has no bounds.
I have all my life been brought up not to believe that people that are that way, that are lesbian or gay, should marry, but I think people are entitled to their own lives. I think people are born that way, that they're lesbian and gay, and that they have a right to live. They are people too, and they have a right to live like, they have a right to live like anyone else,
Okay.
No, because I believe everyone should have equal rights, and I've always been a gay activist, and I've never, ever been wanting to oppress anybody because everyone is human, and I think that you should be judged on your character and not how you dress or what sex you are. It just doesn't matter.
No, because I'm transsexual and I want to get married to my fiance.
I do not agree with this amendment because people are people no matter what their gender is, and people can love people no matter what their gender is.
How do you think this will affect families if passed?
For the heterosexual or homosexual?
Both.
It will not affect anything more than is already standardized for the state of Minnesota, but it will possibly, and it will prevent more benefits from being passed on to same-sex couples and their children.
I think it'll affect families with gay couples that are adopting now, and I think it'll affect the kids more because they will see other couples married, but not their own parents, and they'll ask why, and they'll be confused, and their parents will have to explain about it, and I think the kids will get hate or learn about hate and all that, and they should be learning about love and equality, and they will be able to see it growing up. So I think it'll affect families.
Well, I don't think it'll affect families too dramatically because, I mean, there's a lot of families where the parents aren't married anyways.
How do you think it'll affect same-sex families?
Well, I think it's a little bit unfair, honestly. But just kind of, they just won't have, like, the tax benefits. I mean, I don't know.
If it's passed, then straight families, whether it's passed or not, it really won't affect them. As for gay families, if it's passed, it's not going to allow them to ever be able to be married, so they wouldn't be considered equal as a straight family.
Do you think this will pass, and why?
No, I do not. I think the state of Minnesota is more accepting of the homosexual community, but we are very religious, weird, so to speak. But no, we're definitely reared by more religious foundation here, Lutheran, if you guys don't know. But I don't think it will pass by any means.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. People are open to it, very open to it. I think many people are open to it, but I'm not sure if the majority of people would do it. Everybody kind of accepts everything nowadays.
That depends on who votes, because from what I can tell, not everyone that should know about it does, as well as most of the people that are going to most likely vote on it are going to be the people that aren't gay and probably are going to vote for it to pass, or people aren't even going to know what it is and just check a box.
I don't want it to pass, and I really think that in this generation, in this day and age, I really think it won't pass because of the fact that there are way more activists out there now, and way more support, I think, on the gay, lesbian side than the straight side, with only being one man and one woman.
I think it probably will pass because I don't think as many people know about it as they should. And mostly the people who are voting are like older people with more conservative values.
How would you yourself define marriage?
The binding between two people, body and soul.
A commitment between two loving individuals who want to spend the rest of their life with each other.
It's a commitment to two people who love each other.
The way I define marriage is I just think it's a committed relationship no matter your sexual orientation. If you're fully committed to that person, then why shouldn't you get married? Why have everyone else opinionate your relationship between someone that you don't even know?
Alright.
Marriage is a commitment you make to somebody who you love and you want to stay with forever.
And how is same-sex marriage any different from straight marriage?
Okay, there's no difference between them besides their sexual preferences. And
I really don't think there is a difference. If you love that person, if a gay couple loves each other, then that's the same if one man and one woman love each other. It's the exact same thing. Love is love, and there's no difference.
It's not.
It's not.
Do you think the government should have any say in who can and cannot get married?
No, because as time seems to be progressing, which as it shouldn't be, because as it states in the Constitution it should be separate, church and government, they seem to just be becoming more and more linked together, which they shouldn't.
No.
Now, because I wanted both sides of the issue, I tried extremely hard to try to find the opposite view and just try to see what positives could come of this passing. Even though I myself don't agree with this amendment, I always try to look at things from all angles and try to take a step back, walk in the other person's shoes and see why they would agree with this, and try to understand why they think this should pass. I try to see other people's point of view and try to understand their feelings about things and about issues such as this, something that's very important to me. I try to see why it's so important to them that it would pass. I tried to gather information to see what facts, if this is passed, what good it would do for the state as well. There are a few interviews I got from people who didn't want to be filmed, who didn't want to be on camera, they didn't even want me to blur out their faces, they didn't want their voices or their faces on camera, that were for this amendment, but they didn't want to be videotaped. But I did talk to them about it, and I got some responses. I asked the question of how it would affect families if passed, and they said if it passes, it will help traditional families, and that it would say that marriage is only defined between one man and one woman, and that's important to some people. Another person, I got the response of how would you define marriage, and they said marriage should only be between one man and one woman because that's what God would have said, which if that's the God you want to believe in, then that's fine. I believe God is just. Do you agree or disagree with this? I agree, and I'm voting yes, because this is what God would want. But I can argue with that because, for one, this is religious. If we're supposed to separate church and state, then God should not be an argument for wanting us to pass. I seem to find that people who want to vote yes on this always revert back to the Bible and say this isn't what God would want, that God wants men and women. Well, then why did God create lesbian and gay people? Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. And then love thy neighbor as yourself, as thyself. I mean, those are verses from the actual Bible, and if those are verses from the actual Bible, don't you think God would want us to spread love and not hate? Don't you think He would want people to be happy? Gay people aren't hurting anybody. Same-sex couples that want to get married and have families aren't hurting anybody. A lot of same-sex couples are taking in children that nobody else would want, but they're taking them in because they want a child and they can create a loving, supporting home. I spent hours and hours trying to find facts of the positives that could come out of this passing, and I've come up with nothing. I really wanted to get the opposite view. I really wanted to find facts that would help me trying to back them up and show people why they want this, other than religious views. And there's no facts on this passing, anything good that would come of it. There's no facts on how this would help families if passed, because it wouldn't. For straight families, it wouldn't change anything. And for gay families or same-sex families, it'll just make things worse, because then it'll be discriminatory in the Constitution that we aren't equal to any heterosexual family. But there isn't any evidence, like any hard, cold evidence, any known facts of this passing being a good thing. This would ultimately put hate in our legislation. This would mean that people who truly love each other could not enter into a contract of marriage. in this state, and therefore could not get the same benefits as any other couple, couldn't get the same human rights as any other person should be able to have. This would refuse same-sex couples the same human rights as everybody should be able to have, the same freedoms. If this is passed, it will not affect straight couples or people that fall under the one man, one woman marriage in any way, shape, or form. It won't be good for them and it won't be bad for them. They just won't be affected. So for the one man, one woman families out there, why do you even care or who agree with this amendment and want it to go through? Why do you want it to go through? What is your argument? I've tried to find you guys out there. The ones that I have found don't want to be videotaped, don't want to be on film. Why is that? Are you guys ashamed of what you're feeling? Are you ashamed of your views? Or do you just know you're not right? Are you on the wrong side of history? The one man, one woman families, what effect does this have if it's not passed for you? I encourage the people who want to vote yes on this to do as I have and try to step back, put your beliefs aside for a second, and put yourself in the shoes of, but say the wheels are turned. Say that this world is completely opposite, and same-sex families have the rights and privileges of anybody. They can get married, they can have kids, but straight families cannot. Would you fight for this? How would your views be on that? If the wheels were turned and you guys couldn't get married, but same-sex families could get married, would you think that everybody should be able to get married? Just something to think about. I believe that if this is passed, it will put a wedge between people in the state, more so than there already is. I believe that it will turn a lot of same-sex families against their one man, one woman neighbors. Because, I mean, if families that were normally friends get into this conversation and their neighbors that they've been friends with for years tell them, oh yeah, we're not voting on that, it's going to put a wedge between the same-sex couples and straight couples. Therefore, it's going to put a wedge between people and a wedge between humanity. Do we really want that? I know a few people from other states that I've talked to over the years and lately that have heard great things about the state, that have wanted to move here, but then they found out that this was possibly going into our legislation and this was something that we're going to be voting on, and they don't want to move here, especially at least until after it's decided, because they don't want to move to a state where there's discrimination in the Constitution. They want to move to a state where everybody's equal, no matter who you are, no matter what race, color, creed, sexual orientation, or whatnot. Why would we want to go back to segregation? Do we want to go back to slavery? I mean, I'm sure some people out there do, but as a country, not even just as a state anymore, but as a country, do we want to go back to segregation? Do we want to go back to slavery? Do we want to go back to women not being able to vote? Do we want to go back to that? Why not move forward instead of staying in one spot? Or move forward instead of moving backwards? Because if we put this in our legislation, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking a step backwards instead of a step forwards in history. I want to push that this going through does not mean that same-sex marriage is going to be legal in this state. It just means that there will possibly be an option for it in the future at all. That'll be the next step we move towards it. It'll just mean that we don't ever get a chance to decide if we want that to be legal in this state. It'll just say that the majority of people who vote in this state, not even just the majority of people in this state, but the majority of people who vote in this state are against same-sex couples and against same-sex families because they don't want them to have the same rights as everybody else. It's just going to put hate in the Constitution. That's all there is to it. I want to push that this not going through does not mean we would be allowing same-sex marriage in this state. It is just giving same-sex couples a fighting chance to marry and have equal rights everyone else has. One of my main fears if this passes is that there will be more hate, discrimination towards the LGBTQ community. I mean, not necessarily in the state, but in a lot of places, there's a lot of hate. A lot of people beat people for being who they are. A lot of people hate people for being who they are. Do we really want to be known as a state that allows that? If this passed, I have a feeling it's going to spread more violence towards the LGBT community. Because people will think it's okay to discriminate. People will think it's okay to bully people, LGBTQ people, in the LGBTQ community, or even LGBTQ allies. Because putting this in our legislation would pretty much say that as a state, we do not accept same-sex couples as equals to heterosexual couples. And therefore, wouldn't that be sending a message to our children saying that if you have a gay classmate or a lesbian classmate or a transgender classmate or transsexual classmate or a queer classmate, that if you bully them, it's okay? Because us as adults, they're pretty much bullying the adults, saying you can't get married because we don't agree with what you do. So what gives any parent the right to tell their kids they can't bully somebody of that and explain it to them when us as a state don't say that same-sex couples are equal to heterosexual couples? If passed, this does not bring the state any money. It does not get us out of any financial crisis. It does not help the state in any way, socially or economically, anything like that. And another thing to the people who want to vote for this, who say divorce is okay in the state. So it's okay for two people to get married and then get divorced. So it's not okay for two people of the same sex to love each other, but it's okay for two heterosexual people to get married and then get divorced, and then get remarried and then get divorced, and then get remarried and get divorced, but same-sex couples can't get married. Back to how this would affect families if passed. It would not affect straight families or families that fall under the one-man, one-woman category at all. It would affect same-sex families because they would never have the same rights as a married couple in this state. You couldn't file joint taxes, you couldn't have rights to children, you wouldn't be able to get family benefits from most workplaces. So it would negatively affect same-sex families. It wouldn't affect straight families. Now, to vote no on this, you don't have to be a supporter of same-sex marriage by any means, or even gay people. You just have to be a supporter of human rights and a supporter of not putting hate in our Constitution, not putting discrimination in our legislation. Wow, that rhymed. I would think as a state, we'd want to be known as a loving, caring state, spreading love, not hate, accepting people for who they are, and moving forward, moving on the right side of history instead of the wrong. I think we'd want to be known as a state that wants to get to know someone before you pass judgment on them. Because I know a lot of you out there do not agree with this amendment and do not want it to go through, I encourage anybody who who's of legal age to vote and can legally vote in the state of Minnesota, please go out and vote this year. Check no on that box and help us to defeat this amendment, to defeat this thing of hate that we're trying to put in our Constitution. I know a lot of people out there that would vote no and can't because they're not of age or other issues that they can't vote. So for those of you out there who don't know if you're going to vote this year, at least go out and check the no box on this. Can vote, please go out, register to vote, and check the no box for the Minnesota Marriage Amendment. Thank you. So on the 2012 ballot, when you get to the booth, what will your vote be on the Minnesota Marriage Amendment? I will gladly be voting no.